Hi, I'm Jill Tyler, and you'll remember me from talking about the rhetorical situation, talking about how Aristotle gave us the roots of our understanding of communication studies as we study it now. And even the things that he said so many years ago still resonate for us, still ring true for us. So you'll remember that whenever we engage in public communication, we are creating an argument. We're making a claim that we want our audience to accept. If we are engaging in public communication as a member of the audience, we are listening and evaluating an argument. Now, I don't mean an argument as in a quarrel or a fight, a disagreement. I mean an argument as in a logical, credible, careful presentation of information that will have an effect on our audience. And the effect we want to have on our audience is that we change an attitude or belief. We strengthen an attitude or belief, or we even convince an audience to take some kind of action, to even change their behavior. So let's begin by a quick review of what it is we're doing every time we speak. We always have a purpose in speaking. We should never get up in front of people and speak unless we can answer the question, why? Why am I getting up in front of these people to talk about this topic at this time and in this place? That forces you to really evaluate and understand, take into consideration the four main parts of the speaking event. You, as the speaker, why are you talking about this? The topic, why are you talking about this? The audience, why are you talking to this group of people? And the context, what do I have time to say? What do I have time to accomplish in this event, in this situation? So the general purpose is given to you in this class. So in this class, you're told it's time to give a speech that will inform your audience, or it's time to give a speech that will persuade your audience, or it's for this speech, you should celebrate a shared value. So, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you have to make that decision. What is my general purpose? And usually, in order to answer that question well, in order to say this is worth the time it's taking to give this speech, you will answer to change, to inform, to persuade, to celebrate, but you're working for some kind of change. That's your general purpose. Your specific purpose is much more specific. It begins with to and then a really active verb, all right? Why are you talking to this group of people? It answers that question. Why are you talking? To convince this audience, this particular audience, who are gathered for this event, that this is what should happen, that this change should happen. An example of a specific purpose would be to convince this group of high school seniors that they should consider attending a liberal arts university, okay? And that's me talking about something that's important to me, a liberal arts university, and it's talking to people who can make the change that I am working for. They can take the action that I am working for, and in this time and in this place, they may be considering that. So then, as your speech develops, as you collect the supporting evidence, as you begin to identify supporting material, as you think about what your audience needs to know in order to accept your argument, then you begin to form that thesis statement. And the thesis statement is your speech if you could condense it down into one sentence. Okay, so now, let me just review a few terms for you that I've already begun to use, but this is a great time to kind of review what those terms are. First of all, an argument. We know that an argument is not a quarrel. It's a careful organization of information intended to persuade. The claim is what you want your audience to accept. So the claim is actually the same thing as your thesis statement, especially in a short speech. Sometimes in longer speeches, you will have several claims. But in a short speech, your thesis statement is your claim. It's what you want your audience to accept, to believe, to do, okay? Supporting evidence. We've talked about different types of supporting material. That's the various types of information and materials, narratives, definitions, examples, testimony that are arranged carefully in order to support that the thesis statement, in order to support your overall claim. And then the level of dispute. The level of dispute is what lets you know that you're doing something with your speech, because the level of dispute is the line that separates what your audience already believes from what you want them to believe. Your claim should always rest above your audience's level of pursuit, level of dispute. And finally, reasoning. Reasoning is the work that the speaker does to connect that supporting evidence to the claim. Okay, so let me show you a model for how that works. This is a model of an argument. You'll see there at the very top, the dark red box, it says thesis statement. No, it says specific purpose. What are you doing? Why are you giving this speech? I always like to have that in front of me, because sometimes if I'm especially apprehensive, I will think to myself as I'm walking to the podium, why am I doing this? And it's nice to look down at your specific purpose and think, that's right, I'm doing this to make the world a better place. I am going to convince this audience to do this thing because it will improve our social situation. So that's the specific purpose. Then the claim appears. The claim is your thesis statement. This is what you want your audience to accept. More than anything, this is what your audience should hear and know. All right, right below the claim is that squiggly line. That's the level of dispute. The level of dispute is the line that separates what your audience already knows. So down below is the supporting material. That's what those boxes are. And above it is the claim. Over the course of your speech, because of the way that you speak, because of the presentation that you make, because of the evidence that you provide, that level of dispute will raise. It will raise so that by the end of your speech, your audience has changed. They now accept the claim. So at the beginning of the speech, the level of dispute is lower. At the end of the speech, your audience says, oh yeah, based on all of that evidence that speaker presented, based on the illustrations and the definitions and the testimony that I accept as being true, I now accept that claim is true. Think of the reasoning then, the lines that connect the claim to the evidence. That's part of the work of the speaker. That's part of your work to make sure that you show that evidence that your audience does accept supports the claim. So those lines are the connections that you make between the evidence that you present and the claim that you want your audience to accept. Okay, so those claims, I'm going to talk a little bit about those claims. These are rhetorical proofs. You'll hear them talked about also in terms of artistic proofs, and they're basically different ways of categorizing your supporting material. So a good speech, a good, strong, persuasive speech will have a combination of all of these 4 types of artistic proofs. Artistic proofs here refers to the idea that the speaker creates them. The speaker puts them together. So based on your supporting evidence, you may choose a story, you may choose a statistic, you may choose some lay testimony, you may choose an example or a definition, and all of those will fit into one of these categories. There are 4 categories. They sound like kind of odd words to us now because they were developed by our friend Aristotle back in ancient Greece as he walked around recognizing that people had different ways of persuading other people. The first is ethos. Ethos is a good reason, the reason that is based on the credibility and the trustworthiness and the knowledge of the speaker. You'll spend some time in every speech convincing your audience that you are credible, that you are trustworthy. Sometimes you need to convince them that you are intelligent, that you are charming. Often that you have experience in this area so that you have a good reason for talking to them. Another way of understanding rhetorical proofs is as understanding them as good reasons. We sometimes call proofs good reasons. The second kind then is pathos. Pathos is a type of good reason that's based on emotion, that allows your audience to actually feel something more out of feel something more from your speech, so that the audience actually gets engaged and involved in your speech because they feel connected emotionally to your speech, to your message. Sometimes narratives or illustrations cause your audience to become emotionally involved in the speech and gives you an emotional good reason. The third kind then is logos. And logos is a very common type of good reason. It refers to the kind of factual information, statistical information, the kind of supporting material that can be proven. And this is often very persuasive. You know, when you'll hear people say, "Give me the proof." And a lot of times what they mean is, "Give me the logos, give me the logical, reasonable, trustworthy proof that this is a problem or that this solution will solve this problem." And the last one is mythos. Now I have to confess, mythos wasn't one of Aristotle's good reasons. He stopped at 3. But later philosophers and communication scholars identified that we're often persuaded when we feel that we as an audience are part of a larger group. So mythos brings in the larger social group and the cultural group and says, I feel a part of something bigger. So I will take this action or I will adopt this belief because I see others around me who are taking this action and adopting this belief. So those are the 4 types of proofs, the 4 types of good reasons that we have for convincing our audience that our idea is worthy of their consideration, is worthy of their action. So finally, let me just put that back into the example, and let me give you an example looking at this model. Okay, so I am going to give a speech, let's say, that talks about my specific purpose. The reason I am talking to this group of people at this time and place is that I have been asked to speak on behalf of the Community Humane Society to convince people who are gathered at a community event, a community barbecue, let's say, to support the work of the Humane Society and to support the work of the Humane Society. Okay, so that's my specific purpose. My claim, this is my thesis statement, supporting the Humane Society through financial contributions will make a huge difference in the life and health of community animals. Okay, so I'm going to assume that my audience doesn't yet do this. I'm going to assume that the Humane Society has told me that we're not getting very many contributions from the community. Could you give this speech that will help them give more financial contributions to the community? You bet. So I'm going to start with ethos. My first little red box is ethos. And I'm going to tell the audience that I know a lot about the animals in this community because I have been a member of the board of directors of the Humane Society for the last 7 years. I myself have adopted 2 beautiful, wonderful, loving dogs from the Humane Society. I have volunteered and taken care of animals and even done some work with taking animals from the Humane Society into our hospitals and nursing homes, which has been a great opportunity to provide that kind of care, bringing animals in with people who are sick or are shut in. That's my ethos. So you trust me, right? You believe that I can talk about the Humane Society with some level of credibility. Okay, now I'm going to move to pathos. Okay, you've already heard a pathos-laden argument for the Humane Society when you listen to that song that shows you those pictures, those photographs of those animals on that television commercial. So for emotion, I will probably talk about sweet little Benji, a mixed breed, a small dog who showed up in town, and the police officers picked him up, animal control picked him up and brought him to the Humane Society. He was sweet and healthy and wonderful, but he lived there at the Humane Society as long as we could support him, and when we couldn't support him anymore, we had to let him go. Emotionally, that makes you love this little puppy, or at least feel some fondness for this puppy, and then realize that the puppy had to be put down because the Humane Society didn't have the money to support him. That's emotion. The third one, logical. Okay, so logical means they have to believe that what they do is going to have an effect. So logos, my logic is, even a gift of $25 will allow us to keep a kitten alive for a month. 1 month, we can keep a kitten alive and healthy. A gift of $50 allows us to give all the shots that we need to a whole litter of kittens. And then those kittens are ready to be adopted by happy families. So I need to tell you that what I'm asking you to do, which is give money to the Humane Society, will make a difference, even $25, even $50. And I'm telling you where that money is going to. Those are facts. I might also add a statistic. The Humane Society in this community is doing great work. We have saved 111 animals in the last year. So that would be also a logos argument. And then the mythos argument is based on culture, is based on community values. So I would say something like, we're the kind of community who loves all of the beings of our community, the human beings and the animal beings. We're going to take care of those animals. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of these animals. And that would be the kind of thing, it's your $25, it's your $25. When you put those together, it makes a profound difference in the life and health of animals in our community. So a good rhetorical speech, that's the example. A good rhetorical speech is going to have a combination of all 4 of those types of good reasons. And those pieces of evidence are going to be connected to the claim very carefully through something called reasoning. And reasoning is covered in your textbook. There's all different kinds of reasoning, reasoning by cause, reasoning by sign, reasoning by analogy. And that's the topic of another mini lecture.